Since I last addressed this House, the costs of oil and gas have remained high, and last week the Bank of England estimated that inflation could be between 3 and 3.5% in the next few quarters. The full economic impact of the war remains uncertain, but it makes our economic plan even more important. To build prosperity that is secure and resilient, and to bear down on the cost of living and protect the public finances, delivered through our ironclad fiscal rules, and today I will set out further action that I am taking. Last week, the Prime Minister authorised the US to use UK military bases to defend the Strait of Hormuz. It remains the case that the best way to protect families and businesses is rapid de-escalation of this conflict. And to strengthen our collective security, I have announced that we will explore a new defence financing and procurement mechanism with the Netherlands, Finland and other EU and NATO partners. I welcome the IEA decision to authorise a coordinated release of our collective oil reserves to alleviate the immediate pressure on supply. And the UK has now begun the release of our share of 13.5 million barrels of oil. The last government's failure to invest in energy was a failure to protect our country. But through determined action, this government is taking control of our own energy supply. Investing in renewables, lifting the ban on onshore wind and streamlining grid connections. Running the biggest offshore wind auction in European history last year and bringing the next renewable auction forward to this July. And driving forward negotiation on the UK's participation in the EU internal electricity market. We must guarantee our domestic oil and gas industry can also play a role in our energy system for decades to come. And so I can confirm that we are encouraging investment in tiebacks to make the most of our existing production facilities. We're rewriting the story on nuclear too. Construction on Sizewell C, agreeing an extension to Sizewell B, and we're due to sign the contracts on the UK's first small modular reactors in Anglesey, in partnership with Rolls-Royce. I will not tolerate red tape and vested interests holding back our energy security. So our new planning rules will unblock the pipeline of critical infrastructure projects. I can announce today that we will legislate to implement the Finkleton Review in the next parliamentary session. And I recently wrote to industry and regulators to get them to set out their plans to fast-track that implementation in full. To the parties opposite, who like to talk big about energy security, but then vote against the very infrastructure to build it, let me say this: it is time to put our country first. And I can confirm today that we are developing options to back critical energy projects with indemnities if their planning consent is challenged, so that we don't waste a single moment in protecting our energy security, because energy security is national security. On trade, I can confirm to the House that we are aiming to conclude negotiations with the EU this year on the sanitary and phytosanitary agreement, which will directly impact food prices in our shops. And I have asked officials to look at where there are targeted reductions to agri-food tariffs, which can help bring down food prices too, balancing this with implications on domestic producers and food security. And later this week, I am holding meetings with supermarkets and with banks to discuss how they can further support their customers. We have a world-class competition and consumer protection regime. And since my last statement, the Competition and Markets Authority have stepped up their statutory monitoring of fuel prices, and I will update on fuel pricing within the next month. They are working with government to monitor the cost of household essentials for both price rises and disruption, and they've launched a market study into heating oil. Today, I can announce that we are going further to make sure that the Competition and Markets Authority have the powers that they need that were denied to them by the previous government to detect and to crack down on price gouging, bringing in a new anti-profiteering framework and considering time-limited, targeted powers for the CMA and other regulators. This week, the Business Secretary and I will convene the Regulators' Council to discuss their work to protect consumers. Because let me say again, this government will not tolerate any company exploiting this crisis at consumers' expense. The spring forecast showed that the government has the right economic plan, restoring stability to our country's finances and family finances. I will not put that stability at risk. As we respond to this crisis, we must learn the mistakes of the past. The previous government pushed up borrowing, interest rates, inflation and mortgage costs with an unfunded, untargeted package of support under Liz Truss. That gave the support to the most wealthiest of households. Between 2022 and 2024, under the last government, households in the top income decile received an average of £1,350 of direct energy bill support. That left us with high levels of national debt. A cheque written then for a bill that is still being paid today. I can confirm to the House that contingency planning is taking place for every eventuality, so that we can keep costs down for everyone and provide support for those who need it most, acting within our ironclad fiscal rules to keep inflation and interest rates as low as possible. Mr. Speaker, this is not a war that we started, nor is it a war that we joined, unlike the advice of the parties opposite. But it is a war that will have an impact on our country. The challenges may be significant, but I promise to do what is right and fair, being responsive in a changing world and responsible in the national interest.
Under this government, Mr. Speaker, we are getting poorer, and our economy is increasingly fragile and far from secure and resilient. And despite what the Right Honourable Lady has just said about tiebacks, nothing exemplifies this government's economic folly more than its approach to oil and gas. The utterly misguided net zero obsessions of the Energy Secretary have led to the absurdity of reduced extraction, whilst we see jobs destroyed, tax revenues foregone and energy security smashed. And the greatest tragedy of all, Mr. Speaker, that in Jackdaw and Rosebank we have fields ready to go. In just months, they could be pumping vital relief to millions. Jackdaw alone has enough gas to supply over 1.5 million homes. Yet the Right Honourable Lady has nothing to say on that matter. And less oil and gas extraction means greater dependency and less security. This road leads to ruin. On energy, on the cost of living, on jobs, on growth, on public finances, on every measure that matters, this Chancellor has left us weak, weak, weak. And in the face of this energy shock, there are millions who are about to suffer as a result.